on, guys? Extremis Models here, back at you with another video. In today's episode, we're going to be going over my completed 1972 Ford C9F-100. This was a really fun build for me, as usual. It is the successor to our previous 1971 XJRF-100 build, and throughout this video, we're going to go over what sort of sets this build apart and what separates it from the previous truck. So anyways, guys, without any further ado, let's get on into the video. Okay, so let's get on into the video. As you guys can see, our completed 1972 Ford C9F-100 has been accompanied by the 1971 XJRF-100 that I built last year. As a lot of you guys know, the C9F-100 is the follow-up build to this truck, and I'd made the decision, I believe it was at Acme, not this past Acme, but the Acme before, when this truck made its show debut, that I wanted to do a follow-up. And I knew that the follow-up truck needed to be, at least for me, it needed to be more aggressive. I needed to turn it up a little bit, needed to you know, go a little bit wilder on it, and I think we pulled that off. So for anybody that wants any insight or any information on this truck, there is a video here on my YouTube channel. It's a full detailed video on how I built this truck and some of the things that we did with it. You guys are more than welcome to go check that video out. But we're going to get right on into the C9F-100 build. So we're going to we'll take it off the base here. We'll try not to break anything. So we'll scoot that out of the way. And we will sit this about right here. And we will drop the camera down for you guys so that you get a better look. But yeah, so when I started this build, originally I was going to start this build using a 1970 F100 grill. So it would have been a 1970, but I decided that if I was going to supersede the 71, that the year model needed to supersede it as well. So the truck ended up becoming a 72 in that process, which just required a simple grill change and really nothing else. So upon starting the build, I knew that I was going to face a lot of the same issues. We'll pull the clamshell off real quick. I knew I was going to face a lot of the same issues that I faced in the previous build, where the wheelbase was going to have to be altered on the factory Tamiya race car kit. Basically what I'm saying is the distance between the center of the front wheel, or wheel well opening area here, where your axle would be, or your spindle on the pickup, is longer from this point to the back of the cab than it is on the race car from this exact same point to where the back of the race car body meets this panel here, which basically means that I had to figure up the distance and I had to cut a shim to go in here. And I'm not sure if you can see it when you turn it over. I don't remember. Actually, yes, you can. And it's got some ugly glue lines in it, but that's the bottom of the model. And nobody's going to be staring at the bottom of this truck. It's kind of boring, but anyways, you guys can see the shim. Not necessarily sure how big the shim plate is, but that is the piece that I had to add to increase the wheelbase of this truck so that the cab would line up with this rear bulkhead, as I've called it in the past. And that would allow everything before the bulkhead, such as the interior tub and all that other fun stuff, to work from this point forward, and everything from the engine aft would work as well. So the two kits that we ended up settling on were the Mobius 1972 Ford F-100. I'm not sure if it's a Ranger kit or if it's just one of the F-100s. This truck has been completed for a while, so I'm not necessarily sure the exact kit, but I do know that it's a 72, and it is just like the rest of the late or early 70s Mobius F-100s. And the Tamiya kit that we used was the Tamiya Mercedes-Benz Sauber C9 Le Mans race car kit, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with it. Like I said, in the XJRF-100 build, you know, when I got through to the end of that video and we got into talking about, you know, what my plans were going forward, that car is without question my favorite Le Mans race car of all time. There is just, for me, there is no comparison. The car was just an absolute menace on the track, you could say. Twin turbo V8, sounded ridiculous. It was faster in a straight line than pretty much everything there. It was so fast, in fact, that I think that they had to implement rules to slow the car down. But it was just a fantastic race car, and I knew that the next build that I did had to have a V8 in it. And you know, I love a V12 as much as the next guy, but I'm always going to be a V8 guy. So I knew that whatever I did had to have a V8, and it just so happens that the Sauber uses a 5-liter Mercedes V8, which is what we are seeing here. This is a 5-liter Mercedes V8, and we'll turn a little focus enhancer on here so you guys can see a little bit better. But this is the 5-liter V8 out of the Mercedes. But as you can see, these turbos are not the factory kit turbos. These are a set of Iceman large turbos. These are the largest ones that he offers. I figured, you know, if I was going to do this, then I was going to, you know, like I said before, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to turn it up. So we went with a bigger turbo. I had to kind of mill out the fronts of the intercoolers, as you can see, or heat exchangers down here at the front, to get these things to fit. And the only other real issue that I had here was getting the exhausts figured out, because as you can see, there's no real room to turn an exhaust pipe this size to turn it down. There is actually a piece of the chassis here, and it's just barely in front of the tire. Like, I can't even, what, there it goes. You could barely get this this paint stir to go between that piece of plastic and the wheel, which if that ain't fitment, I don't know what is. But there was no real room to get this pipe to turn downwards and then exit out of the side here like it would on the actual race car. So I thought, you know, I think it would be kind of cool to cut some holes in the top of the clamshell, and that's what I did. They are cut as exhaust exits, and that worked out pretty well. But I knew that one of the things I also wanted to do with this engine, which I've become more prone to doing over the years, is adding as much or more detail than the last build. And the XJRF-100, you know, I went in and did some plumbing and stuff like that. We'll pull it up right here so you guys can get a look at it. But as you can see on the XJRF-100s, I believe this is I think it's a 7-liter V12 that this thing used. I can't remember right off, but anyways, as you can see, this V12 out of the Jaguar, it is plumbed, but there's no ignition wiring, no, you know, coils or distributor or anything of that nature. And I knew with this new build that I wanted to incorporate that. So I went in and just took 2 distributors. I know it's definitely not the correct ignition system, but I've seen this exact same replacement for the lack of a ignition system on these Sauber kits used on a larger scale version of this exact same car. I don't remember if it was a 16th scale, like an 8th scale or something, but there's a larger kit out there that somebody built, I think, or it may have been the 24th scale kit. I can't remember, but they had amended not having an ignition system, and I think they used this exact same kind of approach. So what I did is just took 2 pre-wired distributors. I cut off 4 wires on one side and 4 wires on the other side, and found out the firing order from this side to the other, and then, you know, of course, ran the wires to their respective cylinders. I know that a lot of guys in our hobby don't really like to do that, and having the wires come off one side of the distributor and go to one bank, and then having them come off the other side and go to the other bank, oftentimes, if not all the time, is a much cleaner approach. And I'm not knocking anybody for doing so, but for me, for the realism aspect, I always run the wires to their correct cylinders. So that's how I tackled the ignition system on this build. Another thing, getting back to the twin turbo kit, as you guys can see, we plumbed in the wastegates and our blow off valves and everything. This is not part of the turbo kit that you get from Iceman. So I went in and just drilled out some little pilot holes in the top of this piece here and in the back of the compressor housing for each of the 2 turbos. I will turn this around so you can see the other side. It's basically a mirror to the other side. But we plumbed those, wired everything up, and then for our transcooler, we went in and plumbed it out, and it's all ran up to the it's run under the intake and up to the rear bulkhead, in which case, you know, I didn't plumb it through the interior because you can't really see it that well. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of the approach that we took with the engine this time. Again, like I said, I knew that I wanted to go a little bit more in depth and a little bit more detailed with this engine this time. Seeing as how this truck needs to be basically like a progression to the previous build. It needed to be, you know, a little bit more extreme, and you know, I just tried harder with this one. So but anyways, back to the chassis and lengthening everything and doing our aero kit. As you guys can see, this truck has a very extreme aero kit under it. The front splitter, the side skirts, we'll get to the wing and the clamshell area a little bit later. But as you guys can see, I said in the video for the XJRF-100 that the aero kit for the C9F-100 was in fact going to be bigger and more aggressive. And as you can see, the side skirt differences on the XJRF-100 versus that of the C9F-100 in the same rules carried through from the front splitter to the other front splitter. Went with the same air dam construction on the C9F-100 as before with the XJ. We'll move our paint stirrer across the front of the grill. As you can see, it is completely open through there, so you would get increased airflow over the front of the truck, which would then lead up the front windshield and into our functioning roof scoop. As you can see, it is completely open, which leads me to the clamshell, which has a functioning opening in it as well, and it passes through to the inside of the engine bay to help cool the 5-liter V8. And one of the things that I missed out on with the XJRF-100 that I didn't really want to tackle with this truck either was hinging the clamshell. I really wanted to hinge the clamshell on the last truck, and I had looked around at trying to, you know, figure out a fancy way to hinge the one on this truck as well, but I just, for whatever reason, I just not something that I felt like tackling. And a lot of times when you see these Le Mans race cars in the paddock or in the pit area, these body panels don't, most of the time, they're not hinged, they're removable. And a lot of times you will see them laying behind the vehicle like this, or they'll be off somewhere on a stand. And it just makes working on these vehicles a lot easier because you have easier access to, say, you know, replacing a transcooler or changing an AN fitting or something like that on the engine. So I knew that I wanted to do something tricky with the clamshell. So what we did was I went in and glued, and it looks kind of goofy with the clamshell off, but then you figure out what its function is. I glued in these two pieces of styrene strip here and here, and in their centers is a tiny little magnet on both sides. As you can see, it's grabbing a hold of the paint stirrer. And then on the inside of the clamshell, in the same spot on it, are two more pieces of strip with some more magnets. And you got to be real careful when you swap between panels and make sure that the magnets are in the correct position, because if they're not, you're going to deal with I'm guessing a reverse in polarity. Properly functioning magnets will attach to themselves, and improperly functioning magnets, due to improper installation, will fight against themselves. They will actually push away. So making sure that I had them lined up was key in making sure that this next part worked. So to get the clamshell on, you just line the exhausts up, and it literally just grabs a hold of the clamshell and holds it in place. Which brings me to the absolutely gigantic rear wing. Again, this build was all about trying new things and trying to do different than the last truck. Again, this time going overboard again and making sure that the aero was more aggressive on this truck due to it being a successor to the last truck. I had to go a little bigger. So the wing is constructed out of, we'll count this, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like 12 to 15 different pieces that construct this one wing. My camera's doing all kind of crazy stuff on me right now. It keeps auto focusing and doing all kind of weird stuff. I'm honestly thinking about just upgrading to a actual camera and skipping the phone. As you can see, it's freaking out. There we go. That's a better view, I think. But yeah, I constructed the wing out of like 12 or 14 different pieces, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. There's a little gap there that I purposely left between the bottom plate and the rear of the clamshell to allow airflow to track down the back of the truck and actually slip under this scoop here and help exit through the rear of the truck. You'd end up with a, I guess, like a turbulent area out the back of the truck, which would help improve downforce. But yeah, I mean, the aero kit, again, more aggressive, more extreme than the last truck. For the color on this truck, we primed with Mr. Surfacer 1500 Black, as always. I absolutely love this stuff. I've said it in a lot of other videos. This is, for me, the best primer that I've ever used. It yields the best results for me. I would recommend this to anybody, either getting into this hobby or anyone long-time hobbyists, I guess I could call it, people that have been in the modeling hobby who have not used this. I would highly recommend you do so. I like to mix this 1-to-1 with Mr. Surfacer or Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, which I actually have some here. I'll back this up a little bit for you guys, but I mix these two 1-to-1, and this stuff shoots beautifully. Coverage is amazing. It looks really good. I'm going to turn this autofocus off. Focus enhancer. Anyways, yeah, we mix this 1-to-1. That's what I use to prime. All of the areas of the truck that are painted black are finished in Mr. Surfacer 1500. I think if I ever tackle another build like this again, we're not going to just finish off by painting all of the paneling black. The next time I tackle something like this will all be carbon fiber wrapped. And yeah, so for the body, I knew that I wanted to do something shiny because, you know, the last truck was finished in a matte color. As you can see, it is finished in a marbled olive drab over dark copper highlights with you know, black accents. This time I wanted to do something shinier, and I knew that if I didn't, I was going to get harassed, everybody, for using another flat body, another flat paint. I get picked on a lot for that, but you know, it's all in good fun. So anyways, I'd settled on trying to keep this color maybe not the exact same as the original Sauber in which most of this build is based, but you know, keep it kind of close. And one of my favorite colors that Tamiya has is XF56 Metallic Gray. I don't know why, but I just love this color. This is actually the second or third, I think it's the second build that I've wrapped up in the last year that I have finished with this color. The other build is actually the Extremis Monster truck. So yeah, this is one of two builds. Excuse me. This is one of two builds that I have finished in the exact same color. And once I got the color on, I went in and cleared with, I believe it was Tamiya X22A, which is their clear coat. Put about 3 or 4 coats of clear on, and that's where the next part of this this build's story comes in. I knew that I didn't want to leave this thing bare, that, you know, I wanted to make this truck look a little bit more track ready than the last one. So that included doing sponsorships and stuff like that. So I ended up robbing decals out of several different kits. This C1 category badge or logo here, excuse me, this decal was pulled from, I want to say it was a C7R kit. Let's see here. I pulled some sponsorships from Michelin from that kit as well. The tire decals were pulled from that kit. And then the Ford decals were pulled from the Mobius kit. I had some Fightertown decals left over from my previous F14 Tomcat build. And that's where we got our POW MIA decal for the roof, along with our extra United States Navy decals. And there's a story behind why I opted to use the Navy decals and why this truck has the number 63 on it. So, as a lot of you guys know, I am a very avid military fan. I love our military. I love our country. I love a lot of our hardware and a lot of our pew-pews, we'll call it. Whether it's planes, ships, tanks, I love it all. I think it's awesome. And anytime I'm in the presence of a veteran, someone who has served or is either still serving, I always take the time to tell them thank you and that I appreciate them. One of my biggest honors is knowing that one of my best friends in this world is a Navy veteran. And a lot of you guys in the community know who I'm referring to, and the person in question is Fred Henry over at West Georgia Rods and Customs. Fred, I know that you don't hear this enough, and there's no amount of times I could tell you this that would ever do it justice, but I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate your service to our country, and I'm sure many others do as well. So I got to thinking while I was getting ready to decal this truck, and the Sauber C9 Mercedes kit comes with either 3 or 4 different numbers, I think it is, all ranging between 61, 2, 3, and 4. I want to say those are the numbers. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's something like 61 through 64, 63. And I contacted Fred because I knew I wanted to do some Navy decals on this truck anyway as a nod to him. And I just so happened to ask him. I said, you know, Fred's about, 9 or 10 years older than my mother is. So I'm going to, just figure out what year he was born in. And I'm hoping that he is born in one of the years of the number that was offered in the Sauber kit. And sure enough, he told me how old he was, and he's like, you do the math. And you know how he is. He's got that southern Georgianese dialect and that southern accent. And he says, you do the math. And I sat there for a couple seconds trying to figure it out. And he was like, it's 63 pork chop. And I immediately just hit the roof. I was so excited. And I knew right then, I was like, all right, well, we're going to slap a number 63 on this side of this truck as a nod to Mr. Pappy. And we're going to throw some Navy decals on this thing as a nod to him. And the rest is pretty much history. And I kept throwing decals at this thing. And I know a lot of them look out of place, but that's okay, because this hobby is it's like everybody says, the art is subjective. There is really no, I want to say, wrong way to do it. And when you're building cars and trucks, you can be a lot looser with a car and cars and trucks than you can be with, say, military vessels and planes and just whatever your following is, Cars and Trucks offers you as much or more freedom than the rest of those categories do. And I knew that when I decaled this thing out that I wanted to pay a little respect to Fred. So that pretty much wraps up the decals on this truck. There's really not a lot else to go over. Again, there are some little details that I added to this truck that I did not really add to the last truck, such as the front and rear tow hooks, which you can see here, and the one at the back. We'll pull the clamshell off for it. You got to grab this thing a certain way, or it'll flex and do all kind of weird stuff. Not trying to break this old guy. So there's the rear tow hook that we added out of the Sauber kit. One of the things also, before we close out here, that carried over from the previous build were the 1/20th scale Formula 1 wheels at the rear of the truck. I had looked at running 1/20th scale wheels and tires all the way around this truck, but the 1/20th scale F1 wheels did not look right up front. So what we ended up doing was, instead of using the original Sauber C9 front wheels at the front of this truck, which were tiny, they were honestly as small or maybe even smaller than the tires and wheels that are on the front of the XJRF-100, which, as you guys can see, the tires and wheels on the front of the new truck are quite a bit bigger. I don't know how well you can see that, but they are a considerable amount bigger. There is a more of a gap here on the previous truck than there is on the new truck. I used basically the same exact resin wide body fender flares on this truck that I used on this one over here. They're just cut a little bit. They're cut a little bit different on the new truck, and as you can see, we were more careful about how we opened those arches up, and we were a little bit more aware of what size tires I thought were going to fill this out better. So what I ended up doing was, instead of using the original Sauber tires and wheels on this truck, I moved the original Sauber C9 wheels that were in the back to the front, and that allowed me to use another set of 1/20th scale Formula 1 tires and wheels out back. And they are the exact same spoke count at the rear as they are at the front. As you can see down in there, that is a 6-spoke wheel. And again, you got another 6-spoke wheel up front. And when you turn it upside down, you can see how wide and aggressive even the front tires are. They are huge. But that's pretty much, in a nutshell, some of the other things that we did with this truck. I was actually, couple other things. I was a little bit more detailed on the interior with this truck than the last one. I know I'd spoke about the last truck about not really going crazy with it, but as you can see, we've got a nice photo etch. I don't know how well you can see that. I gotta get some better lighting in here, something that can get down in there. But I added a nice photo etch racing harness down there in the seat. There we go. We turned the autofocus or focus enhancer back on, and you can actually see it a little bit better. But there's some nice wiring harnesses on the interior, scratch built cage, and yeah, that really helped to improve the overall look of this truck. Again, guys, I've been waiting a while to get this video out to you. I'm sorry that it took so long, but I've just had a lot of stuff going on lately. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. If you guys have any other questions about this build, or any of the other builds, feel free to leave a comment. You guys are more than welcome to message me over on Instagram. If you have one, I'll help out any way that I can. I'm really glad that you guys took the time out to check this video out. I'm not necessarily sure what we're going to be doing next, but I'm going to try to crank something out pretty soon. I've got a dump truck that I'm currently trying to finish up. It's a 76 F700 that I'm just waiting on my thinner to come in, and then I can get to cracking on the paint, and it'll be an interesting project to finish. But anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you stay notified on any and all of my new videos coming out. Please like, comment, and share. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Take care. Yeah.